All right, and we are live. Hey there, everyone. Hope you guys are doing great today. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, based on wherever you guys are joining from. Let's just give it a couple of minutes until everyone gets an opportunity to join the webinar. In the meantime, I would love to get to know you guys better. So why don't you just drop in the chat where you're joining from, wherever you're participating from. Yeah, thank you for joining, everyone. So just share in the chat which city, country, whichever, whatever you feel comfortable with sharing, where you're joining from. Right. Atlanta, California, Kuwait, Washington, Indiana. All right, awesome. So we have people from the US, from the UK as well, from the UAE, New Jersey. Awesome. Portugal, Hawaii. Hey, that's great to hear. So we have people joining in from all around the world. And I'm sure all of you guys have very decent reasons for joining this webinar. Um, I assume you guys are working in different domains where you could use automation. Uh, and yeah, I mean, it's in this time, age and era, nobody wants to do repetitive tasks, right? So I assume that's what the goal is, trying to automate your business processes, your technical processes, and that's what we're going to be covering in our webinar today. So just one more minute, and then I think we should be good to get started with the webinar. In the meantime, I am just going to go ahead and share my screen. And I hope my screen is visible. Yeah, it should be visible now. All right, so as you can see, the title of this webinar is Hands-on Crash Course on Power Automate Desktop. We're basically going to be covering robotic process automation and how do we go about doing that. And the tool that we're going to be using for that is going to be Power Automate Desktop. So to start off, I would just like to give a quick introduction about myself. So my name is Albert. I am a senior data scientist here at Data Science Dojo. And I work in a bunch of domains at my company, right? I work with Azure AI services. I work with Power Automate. I work with Python. Um, it could be a data science, data engineering related situation, but my overall goal is to make operations better, speed up operations, uh, streamline tasks. So it could be through using AI. It could be through using simple automation, rule-based automation. It could be in the cloud. It could be on premise. But usually the tools that I work around are low-code tools, and one of them includes Power Automate. So in our webinar for today, the agenda is basically we're going to be starting off with understanding what RPA is and when do we use it. We're also going to be understanding how we can use Power Automate Desktop. We're going to build a simple end-to-end automation, and we're going to talk about how we can apply RPA to real-world business problems. So this is going to be a hands-on webinar. So if you already have Power Automate Desktop installed, you should be able to follow along with the webinar. If not, you can come back to the webinar later as well, and you can uh, watch it, right? So it's good to first give it like a quick watch and then do an hands-on activity later on. So for starters, what is robotic process automation? So this basically means we are using bots that mimic human actions. So each and every day we do some tasks, right? They could be clicking buttons, they could be entering data, writing emails, reading files, copy and pasting information. Some of the tasks that we do can be automated and some of it cannot. Whenever the opportunity arises that we can automate these tasks, why not do that? Why not opt for that? So with RPA, you basically create these bots that mimic human actions, and they can automate these repetitive human tasks, and they can save you a lot of resources and time. So the reason why it matters is that it reduces manual effort, and humans are likely to make errors. RPA, once you have a proper flow defined with proper rules, it's not going to make a human error because it's going to do the job perfectly. It also saves you time and cost, and it works better with compliance. And the main advantage of that is that RPA does not replace humans. It does not take over their jobs. It actually adds to their role. It frees up their time so they can focus on some high value work. So it's going to save you like maybe let's say an hour a day, 2 hours a day that will let you do some other tasks that are of high priority. So it has multiple use cases talking about data entry between systems, right? So let's say you have an Excel file which has a lot of data and you want to upload it online to your own system or your form, whichever exists, right? As if it has an API available, if it has a bulk import option available, then it saves you time and effort, right? That's not an issue. But if not, then you have to do some manual entry. So for those cases, RPA can actually do those jobs for you. You don't have to do it manually. It will complete those tasks easily once you have the function defined. You can create processing of invoices and PDF files. You can do file managements. And basically any system that does not have an API available, any sort of legacy system or any system that is, it's not practical to have an API or it's an offline system, for situations like that, you can use RPA to automate those processes. So for this purpose, we're going to be using Microsoft Power Automate Desktop, and it lets you do both desktop and web automation. And it's part of the Microsoft Power Platform. So you might have heard about Microsoft Power BI, Microsoft Power Apps. All of these come under the umbrella of Microsoft Power Platform. And with that, what you can do is you can do attended automation and unattended automation. That means that you can automate your task while you are watching them take place and happen, or you can just have them set up automatically to run at a particular scheduled time, and it's going to run and it's going to complete the task, and you don't even have to interrupt or sit there. So if you have Windows, Microsoft Power Automate Desktop comes with Windows. If you don't have it installed by any sort of reason, the process for installing it is pretty simple. You can follow this document for installing Power Automate. You just install the MSI installer and you should be good to go. Now, as I mentioned that it's free with Windows, it's free for basic usage. So if you want to use some premium connectors, there is a license requirement, but most of the tasks are actually can be done without requiring any licenses. So if you're looking to automate your folders and your files and your web browsers and stuff like that, even Excel, you don't have to worry about it. But when it comes to uploading your data on SharePoint and more online stuff, that's where a license might be required. So you just have to log in with your Microsoft account. It could be your own personal account, like an Outlook account, or you can use your work or your corporate account. And also, we'll be coming to the questions at the very end. So I will, at the end of the webinar, we'll be going over all the questions that have been asked in the chat or wherever they have been dropped. So to start off, let's compare what Microsoft Power Automate Desktop is versus Microsoft Power Automate Cloud. Now, sorry, there's a mistake over here. It's actually, this one is talking about Microsoft Power Automate Cloud, which basically means it allows for API-based automation. You can connect to different services like SharePoint, Outlook, and Teams. While with Microsoft Power Automate Desktop, it's basically a UI-based automation. That means that whatever is on your screen, you can interact with it. You can click on files, you can click on folders. Just think of it as like an Excel macro. If you have used Excel before, you basically record a macro and it repeats those tasks for you, right? So you can automate desktop app, web apps, or any sort of legacy systems. So this is what the interface of Microsoft Power Automate Cloud looks like, right? So we have a bunch of webinars available as well on our YouTube channel, where you can see how we can use Microsoft Power Automate for things like sending emails, even using AI for automating some processes. But for our focus on today is going to be on the desktop part of Microsoft Power Automate. So these are the different actions available in Microsoft Power Automate Desktop. You have variables, conditionals, loops, controls. All of these are low code or little to no code, right? But you don't have to write, like, you don't need to know a lot of programming to automate things when you are using Power Automate Desktop. It's more of drag and drop. And as we'll do in the hands-on activity, you'll see that very little knowledge is required about any sort of programming. So all these connectors are available in your Microsoft Power Automate. You have Outlook, database, scripting, flow control. Sorry, one second. And whichever action has a diamond next to it, that is a premium action. So that requires a license. But outside of that, text processing, working with files, loops, web scraping, browser automation, all of that can be easily done without requiring a premium license. So if you would like to follow along the hands-on activity, you have to make sure that you have, first of all, a Power Automate desktop installed, and you need to log into that with your Microsoft account. And the other thing would be to have a Microsoft Power Automate browser extension. So with Microsoft Power Automate browser extension, for example, this one is for Chrome, you can do automation within your Chrome browser. Similarly, there's one for Edge, and any other browser might have its own extension. So this is much faster than using your typical Windows interactions. So if you have this installed, it's going to make your browser automation much more faster and quicker and much better. So let's get started and let's open up our Microsoft Power Automate desktop, and we will go through a quick overview of how this tool exactly works. So over here, I have my Microsoft Power Automate open. And over here, you'll see you have an option to create a flow at the very top left. This button that says new over here, this lets you create a new flow. So whenever you have your window open, it might land you in the home page. So all you have to do is you have to click on your flows, and from there you can click on new flow to create a new flow. A flow is basically a specific task that you're performing. So you can have a flow for, let's say, scraping the website, or you could have a flow for automating your files, or you could have all of this in just one single flow. It's all up to you, right? So whenever you want to create a new flow, you just click on that, you give it any sort of name. So the first flow that we're going to be working with is going to be a simple recording. So let's call it recording flow. And I'm going to turn off the repair flow errors because it's currently in preview mode. So recording flow, click on create. And let me bring this over here. Just one second. Yeah. And this is what the interface of your Power Automate will look like. If you have a Microsoft account with a license, a Copilot license is going to show up on the right-hand side that you can use AI to generate your flow. In our session, we're going to be doing most of it ourselves. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to understand creating a basic recording in Power Automate. Now, this basically means that you perform a series of steps, and Power Automate understands what those steps are. And then every time you can just click on run, and it's going to replicate those steps. So let's say the first thing that I want to do is I want to open my browser. So over here on the left-hand side, you'll see a bunch of connectors. You see Teams, terminal emulation, PDF, blah, blah, blah. We're going to go under browser automation, and I'm going to search for launch a new Chrome browser. This basically opens up your Chrome browser. You can specify what URL you want to open. So this is the URL that I'm going to start with. I'm going to launch a new instance. That means I'm going to start a new browser. If there was one already open, I could attach to it as well. But for now, I'm going to open a new browser with this URL. I can specify the size of my window. Let's keep it maximized. The desktop is local computer, and I'm going to interact with my browser interaction. So I'm just going to click on save, and that is my first step defined. So now when I click on run, what it's going to do is going to open up the Chrome browser, and it's going to open this URL within that browser. So I'm going to click on run. And that opens up that window over here. Right? So that is just a simple step that I performed, and that should finish the execution of the flow. Now, what I want to do next is I want to record a bunch of steps. And that can be done with the help of this recorder. So it captures a step of your automation and converts that into actions. So let's say I click on record, and I'm over here. Now I have the option to click on this record button, and it's going to start the recording that's going to keep a track of all my steps. So I click on record, and let's say I start interacting with this browser, right? So I click on, let's say I click on consulting. Sorry, let me do that again. I messed up a bit. So I'm just going to delete these steps to undo them. I'm going to go over here. You can even pause the recording if you don't want any steps recorded. So yeah, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to click on this arrow that's next to consulting to expand that tab. And then let's say I click on this consulting button. Then it opens up this page. Let's say I scroll through this page and I click on this item. And then it opens up that web page. So this basically created a series of steps that have been recorded. I can click on done. And now all the steps will show up within my Power Automate workflow. So I start off by opening up my Chrome browser. So I'm going to move that as my first step. Then I click an element within the window. I click on this, I click on that. All these steps have been recorded. So if I can just run this, it's going to replicate all those steps that I just performed, which starts from opening up the browser, clicking on that item, and then scrolling down and clicking on another item. So if I run this, the browser opens. Then ideally you should click on the consulting arrow. And then it clicks on the consulting page. I went to the artificial intelligence page. That must be an error. So we can go back and we can work on fixing that. So let's click on that. So one thing that you can run into is issues with selectors. Whenever you're working with websites, the positioning and the items, they might change over time. Their code might change over time. Their HTML code might change over time, right? So you have to make sure that your selectors are strong. And that's the next thing that we're going to be focusing on, that these selectors are concrete and our browser doesn't miss on them. So let's start with first going to the issue where that happened, which was on the consulting side. So I wanted to click on the consulting, but it went to another item because of some dynamic variation within my web page. So I have to edit this selector. So I can just click on this edit option. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on fixing this. So either I can work on modifying this selector, or I can create a new one that I think might be more accurate. So going back to my original page, which was over here, and I want to make sure that my browser clicks on this consulting. So how do I do that? Well, I fix the selector. I want to make sure that it finds it properly. So I click on this new option, and I'm going to click on this consulting arrow, or maybe just this consulting. And I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to say capture based on text. So instead of finding it based on the dividers, it's going to look for the consulting divider directly. And whenever it finds it, it's going to click on that. This is going to be a much more better selector because it ignores all the other variations within the page. It's just going to focus on that. So I can delete my original selector. And I can also add an image as a fallback, which basically means that if it's unable to find that tag, it's going to look for a particular image within the web page. So if I click on image as fallback, I can specify that, take this consulting, and capture that. And I capture it. And then if it's unable to find this text within this page, there might be some variation. The next thing it's going to do is it's going to look for this image within the web page. So wherever it finds it, it's going to click on that. So that way I can edit my selector. So I'm just going to delete the rest of them. And I'm just going to focus on this one. So let's decomplicate all these steps. And let's click on run. So what's going to happen? It's going to open that web page and it's going to click on that consulting button within that web page. And it does a perfectly good job, right? So basically, either it finds it through the text, or either if it's unable to find that text, it's going to find it through the image. And I can show you how it actually works in real time. So I'm going to click on edit, and I'm going to test this out. So let's test this and specify the tab to be the data science blog webpage. And let's see, it found it. Similarly with the image, we can test it. Go to that web page, and you see it's able to find that through the image. So you can either use the text or you can either use the image. It's up to you. But usually the best practice is to have the text first, or maybe even make these more dynamic. Let's say over time, they might change this name to something else. So you can say starts with, let's say, consulting. If in the future they change it to consulting services, then it will still be able to find it. So this is an area that needs effort to make sure that the interactions are working properly. So that was just a quick introduction on how you can record sessions and how these different UI elements work. Let's actually go ahead and solve some real cases using Power Automate Desktop. So let's say that we want to scrape a website using Power Automate. That is also a possibility. You can extract information from a website, and you can take that and put that into Excel. You can put that in a Notepad file. All these things can be done with the help of Power Automate because, like I said, it has a lot of connectors. You can do a lot of things with it. So if you are scraping any sort of website, make sure that their website allows scraping. Otherwise, it can cause an issue because if you're making a large number of requests, they might blacklist your IP and you won't be able to access that in the future. So let's go ahead and do this activity where we go to this Data Science Dojo's blog, and let's say we scrape all these blog titles and their blog links because we want to collect them. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the page does not end over here. There's actually more. So if you click on next, more blogs show up. So there is not just information that needs to be copied. There's actually some interaction that needs to happen within the web page to go to the next part of the web page. So that's what we're going to be doing. So let's go ahead and get started with this. So let's go ahead and click on a new flow. Let me see if that flow is still open. I could just use that. So we just use that. Yeah, I'm just going to delete these. And let's go ahead and get started over here. So the first thing that we want to be doing is we want to be launching our Chrome browser to open that page. So we're launching a new Chrome. We're opening that URL. Let's maximize the size so it shows up on the entire screen, and we're interacting with the browser. So that's the first thing that we're going to be doing. Then the next thing that we want to do is we want to extract information from within this web browser. So if you scroll a bit down, you will see that under web data extraction, there is extract data from specific parts of the web page. So there is an option in Power Automate to do that. You can just drag and drop that over here. And you can connect to your original browser. So if you see over here, whenever you're creating any sort of step, it stores that information within a variable. This browser is being stored in a variable called browser. So anytime that you want to interact with this browser, you just have to call that the next time. So extract data from web page, and we're going to be calling that old browser that we had, and we're going to extract information from it. So let's use this page for extracting that information. So there are two things that I want to do. I want to extract the blog titles and I want to extract the URLs. So for that, once you have this open, you can go to your browser page, wherever you want to extract information from, right click, and I'm going to extract the text from over here, which is the blog title. And the second thing that I want to extract, right click, the URL. So now you see I have one value, which is the title of the blog, and then I have the URL of the blog. Now there are more blog posts, so I can just repeat this step again for the next one. Right click, extract element value, text, and then right click, extract element value, the URL. And now you will see that Power Automate automatically identifies all the other titles and the URL. Well, most of them. Some of them it misses out on. So the one that it's missing out on, let's go ahead and also pull them as well. So this title is the text, and then this is the URL. So now you will see all the items within our web page are being selected and scraped. Everything will be highlighted with a green box, and that information is being pulled into these 4 columns. Most of the data is going into the first 2 columns. Some of the data is going into the next 2 columns because, as I mentioned, that the websites can be set up in different ways. You can have different tags. So there is going to be a bit of cleaning involved, and we're also going to be talking about how we can clean this data once we have that pulled into Power Automate. So now that you have these data selected from this page, you have to keep in mind that there are more pages within this particular website as well, right? So you have to click on this next button, and then you have to go to those next pages and pull the information from there as well. That can also be done within Power Automate Desktop. You just select the criteria, and then you can select that element as a pager. That means that this is the item that will be used to go to the next page. And that's pretty much it. All that is done. You can name these columns into whatever you want. So let's call this title. And then I'm going to call this the URL. And then again, the title and the URL. And I'm going to click on finish. And I can set criteria further. Some further rows are going to show up. So do I want to extract the data from just the first page or multiple pages? So I can specify that I want to extract it from, let's say, 2 pages. Right, so it's going to click on the next button 2 times to get the remainder of the data. And I can send a physical click for the next page. And I can specify how long do I need to wait before it times out. And that information is going to get stored in this data from web page variable. And I can click on save. And now that is done, I can just do a quick demonstration of this and show you how this works. Now, like I said, the data that's going to be coming in might be a bit messy, so we have to clean that later. And that, again, all of that data cleaning that we're going to be doing, we can also do that directly within Power Automate. So let's wait. It clicked on the next button. We are on the next page. It continues extracting information. And once that is done, it should say status ready. That means that information has been extracted. And those variables will show up over here. Sorry. Data from web page. I can click on that, and you see all the information is over here. So the title and the URLs have been extracted from within that web page up until 36 rows. So that means it iterated through the remainder of the pages. I can also specify it to go through all the data until it reaches the end. But for time's sake, I want to avoid doing that. So we're going to make it quick and fast, and we're just going to extract data from the first couple of pages. Now that once our data is loaded, as I talked about, that there is some data quality issue, right? So just because of the way the website is set up, some data goes into these 2 rows, columns, and then some data goes into these 2 columns. Now I want to make sure that both these columns get merged into one, and I'm going to do all that cleaning and text processing directly within Power Automate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop through all of these rows one by one, and I'm going to take the data from the 3rd column and put that into the 2nd column. the first column. And similarly, I'm going to take the data from the fourth column and I'm going to put that in the second column. And I'm going to remove the third and fourth column. So I'm only left with two columns that have my titles and my URLs. So let's apply those cleaning processes. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set a variable which specifies the row count. So I'm just keeping a track of how many rows I have iterated through. So right now I have gone through 0 of the rows. Once I'm done with the 36 rows, then my data is good and I can use that for whatever purpose that I want. Now I'm going to loop through each of the item. So I'm going to search for the for loop. So it says for each. That means to repeat through each and every single row from within my data. So I'm looking at my data, which is my data from web page. So this is the information that has been extracted from the website. And I'm going to select that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to iterate through each and every single item from within this data set. Now, the first thing that I want to do it, I want to basically take the item from my third row and put that into the first row. So for doing that, there is the option to update your data table item. And over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my variable, which is my data from web page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my column, which is my, let's say, my first column. So the index that I'm going to be using is 0 over here. In Power Automate, the table starts from the index of 0, then 1, 2, 3. So your first column will have the index of 0. So I'm going to take my 0th column and I'm going to take my whatever row I'm on. So let's go with the row count. And I'm going to replace this with the value from my third column, which is going to be your data from web page. And I'm looking at its first column, third column. So that's going to be index number 2. And I'm also going with the same row. So I'm going to select the row count. Let me just type it in manually, row count. And then I'm going to click on save. Now, once that is done, I'm going to increment my row count because I'm done with the first row. So each time this update has been made, I need to increment a variable. So I'm going to search for increment. So it's increase variable. And I'm going to increase my row count by the value of 1. So that means I'm repeating through each and every single row from within my data, and I'm moving the value in my third column to my first column. So if I just do a quick run of this, so it's going to extract the information. And then once it is done, so let's go back over here. It's going to modify each row one by one. And now my data set should look like, oh, sorry, I forgot to add the blank criteria. It first needs to check that if the value is blank, then it only needs to migrate the data. So there's going to be an if condition over here that I need to add. So so the thing that I'm going to check is if the data is empty. So let's say row count at the column 0 is empty, then I want to perform this action. So if empty, then I want to update the data table item and I want to increase the variable. Oh, this will happen anyways. So I want to update the data item if it's empty. So just for time's sake, I'm going to decrease these rows further because it is taking some time to scrape this information. So instead of having 2, let's just make it 0. I'm going to run this. Just a minute. Okay. And apply the text processing on top of it. So let's wait for that to happen. And let's see our data now. You see the first column, wherever there was a blank value, it has been replaced with the clean value from this third column. Now I can repeat this process again for the URL. So in Power Automate, you can just select things and you can click on copy and paste, and it's going to replicate them. So this time, instead of looking at the first column, I'm going to be looking at the second column, the third column, so which is of index 2. So if it is empty, then I want to, again, sorry, this is going to be index 1 because it's the second column. So if it is empty, then I want to replace it in the first column with the value in the third column. And then if I run this, it's going to clean up that data and format that properly for me. Now, once that is done, I can remove the columns that I do not want. So I can search for remove. Sorry, it's called delete, I think. It's delete. Yeah, delete column from data. I'm just going to delete the 2 unwanted columns. So going through my data table, I'm deleting through the index, the column that I don't want, which is the second and third column, because I have successfully cleaned up my data. So deleting the second and third column, and now our data should be perfectly clean. Now, once that information is clean, we can put that in Excel. So I'll just give you a run and show you what the final table is looking like. And then what we're going to do is we're going to launch up our Excel, and it's going to automatically save this information within the Excel file. So going back to my Power Automate, waiting for the cleaning to happen. The index row count. Oh, right, sorry. So once the column 2 index is deleted, this index will also be 2 because that column no longer exists. So there are no longer 4 columns with new data. There are only 3 columns. So we're going to delete the column with the index 2 again. It's going to launch up our page. It's going to scrape that information. It's going to clean that up. One second, why is it giving an error? Index row count is out of range. Which step is it happening in? Oh, over here. Okay, if row count is empty, then, oh, I forgot to set up a criteria to stop this, which is why it is looping infinitely. So I'm going to say, change this to, let's say, for each loop until a condition is met. So loop condition. So the first operand is going to be my row count is going to be, let's say, equal to less than equal to 12 for now. Let's just do that. And I am going to repeat that. So while loop condition, wait 1 second. Increase variable. Let me see. Okay, I'm just going to specify a criteria to exit this loop just for the simplicity. So I'm going to add an if condition over here. And if the row count is greater than 12, is greater than or equal to 12, then I want to exit this loop. We can make this dynamic, but just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to exit this right now. Let's see if that works. Yeah, that worked. And let's see my data. That's fine. You have the data cleaned up. The next thing that I want to do is I want to take this data and I want to put that into an Excel file. So how do we go about that? Well, we first have to launch an Excel instance. So go and launch an Excel instance. So launch Excel. And I'm going to launch an Excel that's blank. And I'm going to write information within this Excel file. So I'm going to search for write to Excel worksheet. And I'm going to take this information that I just have extracted from the web page, and I'm going to write it on the column A, row number 1. And if you see over here, I also specified this as Excel instance. So that means that the same Excel that I've started, the Excel file that I've opened, I want to write that information over there. So now if I run the flow from very start till the very end, what it's going to do is going to scrape the website, clean that data, it's going to open up an Excel file, and it's going to write this information over there. So it's cleaning it up right now, I believe. And now it's waiting to launch the Excel file. It opened that up and it pasted this information that I've just scraped over here. Now I can clear this information. I can trim that as well. There's an option to trim text available. There's a lot of different steps available, a lot of pre-processing, a lot of cleaning that you can do with the help of Power Automate Desktop. You can go and browse through all of these different functions and see what their capabilities are. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you another business case, and I'm going to show you a possible flow that I can draft up for it. So let's say this is your problem scenario. You are a marketing team, and you receive a bunch of files such as reports, Excel files, and PDFs, and you have to create folders and organize them. Now, this process again is time-consuming, likely to give you errors, and this is an opportunity for Power Automate Desktop to resolve those issues and save you time. So let me go ahead and share a flow that I can design for this, and I will walk you through that flow step by step. So let me just open that up. Just give me a minute. Let me bring this to the screen. And here I have a simple flow, and I will walk you through what's happening over here. So the first thing that I've done is the first step I've added is I have created a get files option. This basically what it does is that it takes a folder and it extracts all the files from within that folder. So I have this folder called disorganized data, and I have a bunch of files within it. It's document files, PDF files, even a PowerPoint file. And it's right now it's a what our team wants is that we want to organize this into something like this, where we have a month and a year for when that file was downloaded or when was it created or last modified. And within that folder should be the respective file. So right now that data is disorganized and I want to go ahead and organize that. So this flow will help us accomplish that task. So what's happening within this flow? First, we are using this get files in folder. We're specifying the path where we want to extract the information from. And we're also specifying what are the different file types that we're working with. So we want to extract all the data that's of the doc file format, or the PDF file format, or the PowerPoint file format. Then for each item within the file, so that means you're going to loop through each of the files within that folder. You're going to apply some transformations on it. The first thing that you're doing is you're creating a new variable, and that variable is basically storing each file's last modified date. So for each file, you have a bunch of different properties, right? So if I show you what they look like, I'll have to actually run this. So you have your file's full name, if it exists, when it was created, is it hidden, when was it last modified, what's its extension. All of this is metadata that comes with each single file. So from that, basically what you're doing is you're pulling in the time or the date that it was last modified. And you're storing that within a new variable, and you just call it new var. Now what you're doing is you're creating another variable which extracts the month from this date and the year from its date, and it combines that into a format that looks something like this. So let's say if a file was modified on 11/12/2025, if you're using the month, date, year format, it will look something like this, that 11th is the month and the year is 2025. So from that file modified date, you're creating this new variable and you're storing that information over here. Then in the next step, what you're doing is you're specifying that what is the parent path? That means where is this new folder or the clean information going to go? And this is the path. I created a folder in my downloads, which is called organized data. So I'm going to take the data from the disorganized folder, and I'm going to move it into an organized folder by creating a hierarchy. So first thing what it's going to do is it's going to check, does that folder exist? Let's say the file was modified in August 2025. Does the folder called 08/2025 exist? If it does not exist, then you need to create it. And if it already exists, then you don't need to do anything. You can just simply move the file to within that folder. So this is the condition that I've drag and drop over here, which is if folder exists. And it basically is checking if the folder doesn't exist at this particular path. So the parent path followed by the folder name. So if you see, this is the parent path. This is the parent path, followed by whatever the folder name is, which is this month here. So it's basically checking something like this. So if, let's say, this followed by 08/2025 exists, then you don't need to create a new folder. But if it doesn't exist, then you need to create that folder. So if it doesn't exist, then you create that folder, give it that same name with the date and the path as the original place where the folder has to be created. Then you end that over there, and that folder should be ready. So let's say if our folder was called 08/2024, it already exists, so you don't need to create that. But if it did not, if for something like 8/2025, since that folder does not exist, a new folder needs to be created. So it will create that folder, and then finally we're going to take our files and we're going to move those files within the destination that I've specified. And I can override that file, or if it already exists, then don't move it. So this is a simple flow. It's going to take that data and migrate it. So let's run this and see how it works. So this is what our disorganized data looks like right now. And you'll see the files will start moving to the organized folder. And the only file that is left is the Power BI file, because I specified that I only want to work with PPTX, PDF, and docs. These are the only ones that are relevant for me. And now if I go to the organized folder, you will see all those folders have been automatically created. And within those folders will be the respective files of those modified dates. So all the files that were of the relevant extension, they will be moved over here. So using those processes, you can do a lot of automation within Power Automate. You can, if I mean, the possibilities are endless. Like if you just expand one of the options, you can see all the different options available. You can fill out forms, you can extract data. So it's very helpful. You can do a lot of automation within your day-to-day routine. Any sort of clicking or any sort of manual work that you're doing, all of those processes can be easily automated with the help of Power Automate Desktop. So I would suggest going around and playing with these and learning more about the capabilities of Power Automate. But hopefully, by the end of this webinar, you guys should have been able to get a brief overview of Power Automate Desktop and its capabilities. Now, whenever you're working with Power Automate Desktop, there are going to be some common challenges that you're going to be running into. For example, dynamic web pages, UI element changes. So web pages might be changing over time. So you'll have to come back and update your logics. Your element UI elements might be dynamic. They might have changing tags. So you have to be very careful. And like I said, you can use images or you can use specific text to make sure that those items are found in the web page. Or you can make sure that instead of saying that, find the exact match, You can make your selectors more dynamic, like maybe you starts with, contains, or you can use any of those items that you want to finally get to the path wherever you're looking for. So I believe this would be a wrap on our webinar today. And I would like to take the remainder of the 10 minutes to go over the Q&A and any questions that you guys might have. So let me just go ahead and go through the chat and see what those questions are. Okay, so the first question that we have is that what's the difference between Power Automate Desktop and Power Automate Cloud? Like we discussed, Power Automate Cloud is for automation for cases where you have APIs available. So SharePoint online, Excel online, any sort of platform like SAP, whichever have their APIs exposed where you can make requests, push request, whatever sort of request you want. For those, you use Power Automate Cloud. For legacy systems or for UI-based automation, you will come to this tool. For invoice processing, can I process invoices given as image with handwritten fonts? Yes, but you will need to use Azure OCR, and those have some costs associated with it. But there is the option to connect with those available as well. But also, if you can find any free tool online for uploading images and extracting text from it, you could just create an automation for that pipeline and automatically go to the website, upload that image, extract the information, copy paste that. That can be automated as well. Do we have a Mac equivalent? So the Power Automate Desktop is specifically for your Windows. I am not sure if there is a Mac equivalent out there because I'm not a Mac user, but if it's there, it's not going to be by Microsoft. But if you want, you could use things like Selenium and stuff. Those are good for web browser automation as well. But the Power Automate Desktop, you can go beyond just your browser automation into different other sorts of automation. Is it possible to run it in a silent mode? Yes, you can use an unedited version. So basically what happens is that you get a virtual machine, you have to buy a particular license for it, and then the unedited flow will basically run at a scheduled time, start that VM up, execute all the flows within it, and it's going to happen within it. Simultaneously, you can also use a WebDriver. So a WebDriver will allow you to run your browser automation without actually seeing your browser. Similarly, with Excel, it can also open in the foreground. A question about when the recorded session will be available. So the recorded session will be available within our YouTube link. It will go live very soon after the webinar ends. So best practices for versioning, that is where your Power Automate Cloud will come into place. So with Power Automate Cloud, you have the option to create solutions. You can do versioning over there. Within Power Automate Desktop, if you are just using Power Automate Desktop on its own, you'll have to just create multiple flows with different names. But if you get a license for Power Automate Cloud, you can mix those two together and you can do different sort of versionings over there as well. So the question about when you are doing a report in Excel, can you automate it in any other way other than using macros? So in Power Automate Desktop, you see you have different Excel connectors. So if I go back and if I just search for Excel, sorry, my system's hanging a bit. You see, you have the option to do a lot of things with Excel. You can launch Excel file, you can save Excel file, you can delete row, copy cells, paste cells, autofill cells. So you don't have to use a macro recording to do any of those steps. The one that we did where we copy pasted the data, we didn't record those steps. We used this list of options available, right? So with automation, you can do all of that. And also you can run your scripts. So if you have scripts within Excel, you can execute them through Power Automate Desktop. And you can actually even open up your Power Automate flows from Excel, that is an option available as well using the URL of the flow. So there's multiple integrations possibilities available. Okay, let's see any other questions. Okay, that's great to hear that you guys found it helpful. Yes, there's a question about Outlook. Yes, you can automate Outlook both in Power Automate Desktop and in Power Automate Cloud. So we have the different functions available for Outlook. You can retrieve emails, send emails, save emails. And within the cloud, there are much more capabilities. You can even work with calendars, events, and stuff like that. Can I connect to an existing web browser and an existing web page? Yeah, you don't have to launch a new page every time. So if I just show you an example of this, let's close this, and I'm going to add attach to a running instance. So I'm going to go to Chrome. I'm going to specify attach to a running instance by title, and I can specify what the title of the web page is. So Data Science blog is the web page. I can paste the title over here, and I can click on save. And then what it's going to do is that it's going to look for all the open tabs within my windows, and wherever it finds this title, it's going to open that up. So do you guys do an intro to the cloud version? Yes, we actually have a webinar available on our YouTube channel. It's by the title of AI Automation with Power Automate Cloud. So do give that a watch. We just don't talk about the introduction to Power Automate. We also talk about how we can integrate AI into Power Automate Cloud. I'm just checking if there are any questions that I might have missed out on. Okay, is there a way to extend the available functionality? Could you elaborate on what that means? Are you asking that can we go beyond what are the options available over here? If that is your question, then so you can find a way to go beyond the restrictions that you have over here. There might be some combinations of tools that you can combine to go beyond that. For example, let's say you don't have a notepad connector, right? So you don't have a notepad connector. What you can do is you can simply just go and automate opening up a notepad file. So you record your session, you search over here, like for example, I'm recording my session, and then I'm going to search over here. I'm going to type in Notepad, and it's going to open that Notepad window up, and then I can interact with the Notepad window. So any window that you have open, any sort of window that you can open within your browser, you can interact with that with the help of Power Automate Desktop. So any sort of UI automation can be done. So that basically there's no restriction, right? You can do whatever thing shows up on your window, you can interact with that and you can automate that process. Okay, so let's take one last question. What is the example for using Power Automate with agentic AI? So in our webinar, we basically talk about the other webinar that I'm referencing. We talk about how we can automate sending emails, extracting information from emails, and performing actions using LLMs. We don't talk about agentic AI over there. So agentic AI, has its own domain. You can have your MCP integrations over there. With Power Automate, you can integrate them with simple LLMs and perform automations with the help of that. All right, so I think that will basically be a wrap on this webinar. I want to thank you all for joining. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you guys had a good time and you learned a lot. Do follow us for more webinars and check out our page. Thank you so much for attending. Hope you guys have a great day, and I hope to see you all later.